Bonjour mesdames et messieurs, in this episode we are going to do an HDR straight into the sun with Photomatix. Bonjour mesdames et messieurs, my name is Serge Ramelli. I'm a French photographer living in the amazing, the incroyable city of Paris, France. Although I'm in the US for now, I'm doing books, fine art books. In last episode I showed you how to use Tonality Pro to make dramatic black and white. That's the final result. An amazing Mac-only plugin. This week, I'm going to show you something that a lot of people has been asking me, which is doing HDR straight into the sun using Photomatix. Photomatix has been the reference for HDR retouching. And I'm going to show you how to make a natural look, how to make a more HDR look. So let's go to California Beach and let me show you this. Bonjour mesdames et messieurs. So today I think is going to be a nice tutorial and I'm giving you for free 3 raw files that I shot on the California coast a couple of days ago. To get the raw files you have to go to News, Sign Up, and then you can sign up to my newsletter by putting your name and email. You'll get lots of newsletters from me with lots of amazing deals, and in exchange you will get access to hundreds and hundreds of raw files from all over the world. So let's get started. All right, so here's the 3 photos. I wanted to do like an HDR shot with the sun right into the camera. That is something a lot of people have been requesting me, and I was on the way back from San Jose to Los Angeles and just driving on the coast trying to find some nice scene, and I found this scene which I really like where you have trees. And I love the look on, this is the overexposed shot. Look at the shadows. I like the sun was coming down behind the trees, and I like the shadows it was giving. I think it's gonna make a nice photo. So what I did is, if you press I on Lightroom, you can see how I shot this. I shot this at 6.3 ISO 80. So I wanted a low ISO. The reason why I went to 6.3 is because when you shoot into the sun, if you wanna have the not too much chromatic aberration, it's good to be between 6 and 9. Because you get a lot of chromatic aberration when you have the sun straight into the camera. Second thing is I didn't have a tripod with me, so I on the Sony A7R, which is what I shot this, I have to press the shutter 3 times on the bracket mode. That's something that Canon has that Sony doesn't have. With Canon you can just put the timer on, press once, and it takes the 3 shot. With Sony you have to press 3 times. The result is that I moved between the 3 shots, especially between the underexposed and the overexposed. So this one was shot at 1/25th of a second at 6.3 ISO 80. This one was shot at 1/500th of a second, so very fast, very underexposed. It's actually 2 lights, 2 aperture between this one and this one. And then this one is +2, so that's 1/30th of a second. And 1/30th of a second, is not good because I think I even have a little bit of a blurry shot on this one. Usually 150 is more secure. So what I should have done is probably boost my ISO to like 100. This way, the overexposed photo, which is always the longest shot, would have been of about 50 seconds. No, but it's actually pretty sharp. I'm happy with it. So the thing is, I could try to get the best out of of one raw file, which is what I usually do, but there is so much dynamic range in this photo, and not everybody also has a very high-end DSLR. That I want to show it to you again, how we can use Photomatix to create a sort of HDR look. So I'm going to go for 2 looks, a pretty illustrative look and a pretty much natural look. So first thing, I'm going to the develop module, and I'm taking the normal exposure, and I'm going to do some retouching. I'm just going to open up the shadows a little bit on this one because it's very dark overall. Bring a bit down the highlights, but not +100, -100, because it's going to go into Photomatix, so I don't want to do too much of that. So I'm not going to touch the white and blacks. What I'm going to do is just enable the profile correction and remove chromatic aberration. That I'm going to do. And I'm going to play around with the white balance. I think I'm going to go for shade. Shade. And add a little bit of magenta because it was really golden hour. I mean, the whole place was very, 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 But you know what? Actually, I'm going to go the opposite. I'm going to go on daylight on this one. I just realized, because I don't want the reason why, if I go on shade, I'm going to get a very, you know, like and add a bit of magenta, I'm going to get a very, very warm photo. However, I want to play with contrast. So on this one, I'm going to go to daylight. To daylight. And actually, I'm going to add even more green because I like the green here. And yeah, no, not so much. I'm just going to leave it on daylight. You know, it's a really trial and error process. Then I'm going to select all 3 photos, click on sync and synchronize. All right. Now I'm using the latest version of Photomatix, Photomatix 5, but you can use 4 for this. It's going to work also. So I'm going to right click. I'm going to go to export, export to Photomatix Pro. Oh, hold on. One thing I like to do before going to Photomatix, I like to take the underexposed photo. I'm sorry about that. And I like to reduce the noise on this one of about 20. I know Photomatix already does it, but I just add a little extra push to it on this workflow. So I select all 3, right click, edit, export Photomatix Pro. Okay, align image, and this was not taken on tripod. So I say on held, include perspective correction, yes. Cropped align result, yes. Show option to remove ghost. Now, ghost removal, what is ghost removal? Ghost removal is when you have moving objects between, like leaf, for example, with the wind. That is something. However, I can tell you, because I've tried it a couple of times, that option is not giving me a good result at all on Photomatix. So I'm going to show you a way around this, because we will get ghost effects in the leaf of the tree. You'll see why in a minute. Reduce noise underexposed image only. So as I said, I'm going to do it twice. First time in Lightroom, a second time in Photomatix. Reduce chromatic aberration again a second time, because doing HDR can really enhance that. Automatically import into Lightroom library, yes. File, combined file name, so it's going to call it Untitled 192021. I can add a suffix like HDR. Output format TIFF 16-bit, that's the best. And yes, stack with a selected photo. This way it's going to get connected to my Lightroom library on the first photo. So I'm happy with that, and I'm ready to rock and roll. So export. I'm going to put on pause until it launches Photomatix. All right, so here we are in Photomatix, and I want to show you a couple of options. First, Photomatix has 3 main algorithms: detail enhancer, contrast optimizer, and tone compressor. I used to use a lot detail enhancer in the past, but it gives a really, really non-natural look. Some people really like this. I'm going to go for a more natural look. So I'm going to use a contrast optimizer. Okay. Now the contrast optimizer has a bit less setting than the detail enhancer. Tone compressor, I don't use it. I always find it gives really weird effects. So I'm using contrast optimizer. Basically, the way it works is that you have trends here. If you move trends to the right, it's going to give that HDR look a lot. You know, meaning that all the shadows will be completely opened, and it's just it's going to be very HDR. So I usually leave it about like 64%. Tone compression. If you move it to the right, it's gonna make it less contrasty. If you move it to the left, it's gonna make it darker. So again, this is just like, go by your feeling and just look at the quality. Usually it's around 2.1. Okay, lighting effects. If you go to the right on this one, it's gonna make a very HDR look. And if you go to the left, it's gonna make a more natural look. So on this one, I'm going for, I want to get the details everywhere. I want to get closer to what the human eyes can see, okay? Now you've got, here, if you click on natural, that's pretty cool. You got, that's a default. Natural, you can get painterly effect, photographics. You got many presets, which are really cool in this one. Wow, some are crazy. So if you want to go back to default, you just click on default. And again, I'm going to go to contrast optimizer and strands, tone compression. Look at the sun there behind the tree. It's really cool. I like that. Lighting effect, maybe just a little bit. White and black clips, I'm not going to touch much because I want to do that back in Lightroom. And mid-tones. Mid-tones, if you go to the left, it's going to make the whole thing darker. So I want to make it a bit brighter. And then I'm going to do a double processing in Lightroom. Color saturation, maybe a little bit. I'm going to add a bit of saturation on this one. Voila. And yeah, we need to add back some warmth, but I'm going to add it locally. I kind of like that, so I'm going to click on Save and Re-import. Okay, so pretty straightforward. Again, strength 72, tone compression 4.6, a little bit on the right, on the 2/3 right. Lighting effect, a bit on the right. White clips, anything I didn't touch except color saturation. But just play around with the presets, you know, you can go crazy on this. So save and re-import. So it's going to tone map it and it's going to re-import it into Lightroom. I'm going to put on pause until it's re-imported into Lightroom because I don't want to waste you any time. All right, so we are back in Lightroom and we've got the HDR shot. Now compare it to the normal shot, that's quite a difference, as you can see. But the problem is if you zoom in, Photomatix has been doing a better job with that over the year, but you see, it's kind of weird here around the leaf. You know, it's kind of very weird because, you know, the leaf, all this little leaf, you know, kind of moved, you know, over time, over the 3 shots. And it's kind of, yeah, it's kind of a really weird result. So usually what I like to do is I like to mix this one with the normal one. So then I take back my normal one and then I do my regular workflow. So I'm going to open up the shadows, bring down the highlights. Okay, and then I'm going to do my white point and my black point. All right. Maybe it's a bit too much on the white point. Maybe, yeah, I just have to find the right thing. So it looks kind of cool. Okay, but look here. The good thing about it is, yeah, you don't have the same ghost effect in this one. It's more natural. It is more natural. So, okay, at this point, I think I'm gonna add, no clarity. Actually, I'm gonna go minus on the clarity. I want to give it a more natural look. Okay, and then I'm gonna take this too, right click, edit, open as layers in Photoshop. Because I want to mix the normal exposure with the Photomatix result. And this way I can really, you know, get a more natural result. Okay, so that's going to open up Photoshop. It's going to put each photo, the Photomatix retouch photo and the regular raw file photo on its own layer. In just a sec, I'm going to put on pause until it's done. Okay, so we're in Photoshop and on the top, I have the regular photo and on the bottom I have the HDR. So I'm going to put the HDR on top here. Zoom. Oh, I have to take the little lock off and I'm going to put the HDR on top. So the HDR is on top, but you can see as I move my camera, they are not at the exact same place. So the first thing you have to do is align the layers. So you take both layers and you go into Image, Auto Align Layers. You take the first option, click on OK. Now both photos will be completely aligned, meaning if I turn this off and on, you can see they're completely aligned. And now what you can do is you can use mask or opacity to blend both. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make the opacity of the HDR a lot lower. And I advise you press Z for the loop, for the zoom, and you check it out. At 100%, it's kind of weird. You got like, look at this, especially here, you got ghost effects around the leaf. Okay, now if you lower this, it becomes natural around 50%. But you still get a little bit of that HDR feeling. Okay, let me zoom in a little bit. So at 50%, it's kind of cool. So you get sort of like best of both worlds, you know. It's, you know, that's how I find that you get the best result. But it's not over. Now I'm going to save this one, re-import into Lightroom, and do a final retouching on that blended version. All right, so it's re-imported. So that's the natural one. That's the HDR one. And I can show you something. You can take both of the photos and you can press C. This way you can really zoom in, like if at the same spot. I think it's a very good way to compare. So on the left, I have the very HDR one, and on the right, I have the more natural one. Okay, and you can see I've got. Oh, hold on. I'm not sure actually. Let's zoom in a little bit more. On this one, this is the HDR one. This is the natural one. Yeah. Okay, that's the HDR one, and that's the natural one. And you've got less. It's a bit more natural, and the overall feeling of it, look, is a bit more natural if you look this one or this one, you know. But some people really like the HDR look, you know, of things. And I'll show you how to make that at the end. But first, let's continue our retouching. First, you see there is something a little weird here. It's because when we align the image, we got little corners. So I'm gonna go to the develop module. I'm gonna crop the image. I'm gonna crop it here a little bit and crop it there because I don't like to have this little bench here on the, and yeah, so we're like more into the sun. This is anywhere 36 million pixel photo, so it's kind of cool. Now the photo is kind of green, it lacks a bit of red, and I want to add some light rays to increase the feeling of the sun. So, well, let's do a little double retouching first. Let's open up the shadows and bring down the highlights. Do some white and black. Just move a little bit the information here, and maybe make the blacks a bit darker. That's always good to do a little double processing. It's kind of nice, it gives a good contrast. And now I'm going to take a brush, and I'm going to make that brush, I'm going to boost the exposure of the brush. I'm going to add a lot of magenta in that brush and a bit of yellow. Okay, and I want to add some lights of rays. I'm going to go flow and density around 80-80 so that it's not 100%, and make sure auto mask is off, otherwise it's going to make weird ray lights. And I'm going to follow the way the light is. I'm playing with the middle mouse, and I'm just going to add a bit of light here. I'm going to enhance, whatever was going on here in the first place. That's pretty cool. And then I'm going to add even more red to it. Maybe paint some red back in the sun, because I find that the overall photo is kind of a bit too greenish. Okay, maybe add a bit more saturation, just so that we have really this effect of the sun. Okay, and then this is when you make your final decisions. Maybe I'm going to lower the overall exposure, make it a bit more dramatic, boost a little bit the whites. Yeah, something like that. So at the end of the day, I have a pretty much a natural result. Let me show you before the brush stroke here. Before the brush stroke, after the brush stroke. A big difference. But all I did was enhance the light rays that was already there. Okay? And so what I could do is I could take this, select my HDR one, and just synchronize. I'm going to check none. Just process version is the minimum we need to synchronize. And I'm going to synchronize, actually the crop, I want to synchronize the brushes that I did, and maybe not the basic tones, just that to see, okay? And now we've got on the HDR, I've got this enhance also, and then, all right, I'm going to play around with the HDR, maybe just add a bit of contrast to it, and a bit of clarity while we are at it. No, not so much, it's too crazy, too crazy. Okay, and maybe open up the shadows. So that's the crazy non-HDR look, and that's the more natural look. Crazy HDR, natural. I'll tell you something, a little story about this. Usually when you do like HDR like this, very crazy HDR, photographer will say you're a fraud because they don't like that trick, okay? But if you show that photo to non-photographers, like just people that like photography, they'll say, wow, this photo is kind of amazing. And if you show the more natural photos to photographer, they'll say, yeah, it's a nice photo. How did you do that effect? It looks kind of cool. But if you show the same photo, which is more natural, to a non-photographer, they'll say, it's a nice photo, but they won't be as much impressed as the HDR one. At least that has been my experience. So professional photographers hate the HDR look, and non-professional, I mean, this is not a generality, but this is an observation that I've seen over and over. Anyways, all right, so if you like this kind of retouching, this kind of workflow, I advise you to get my 2014 workflow, because you see, more you train on this type of retouching, digital blending, HDR, and I show a lot of examples in my 2014, so over 20 projects. Let me show you a little trailer to show you what I mean.
Bonjour, mesdames et messieurs. I'm happy to announce that my new 2014 full complete workflow is out. Last year I did a course which was 7-8 videos about my complete workflow using Lightroom 4 and at the time Photoshop CS5. Since then Lightroom 5 came out, Photoshop CC came out, and I have also updated my workflow. I work a bit different now than I did about a year ago. Last year I showed you about 7 to 8 projects. This year I'm going to show you 20 projects from A to Z with all the raw files, how I retouch every single photo. I'm a strong believer that more you practice your retouching skill, better you become. Every photo is unique. Every photo has its own white balance, its own histogram. even though the workflow is kind of similar, I really learned by watching people retouching over and over and over. So that is why I did 20 projects. So you can see every photo is unique, every being is unique, everybody has got his own viewpoint. So it's important so that you have the raw file so you can, also look at it your way and go into some other directions than what I did. Some of these projects are some of my best photos of Paris, taken during the workshop of Paris in spring a few weeks back. I'm really proud of these photos. A lot of them went very high up on 500px, got lots of great reviews, so I'm sure you will love it. If you purchase this bundle, you will also get for free last year's workflow bundle. So thank you very much for your trust. I get a lot of emails from you guys that you appreciate my training, and it really gets me going. I hope you will like this one. I put a lot of heart into it, a lot of passion, and I hope it's going to get your retouching to the next level. I'll see you in a training video. Au revoir.